Well, for more on the outcome of this week's EU summit, I'm joined by international consultant and author Adrian Salbuchi. Always good to talk to you again, Adrian. Former Italian Prime Minister Romano Prodi said the most important outcome of the summit is the fact that Europe will move forward without Britain and London will no longer stay in the way of its decisions. What do you make of that view?
Well, in a way I can relate to what Romano Prodi has said, because Britain has been standing in the way of many decisions in the European Union. But in this particular instance, I would tend to favor the British position here, because Britain from the very beginning understood, and they still understand far better than their European colleagues, the importance of national sovereignty and the importance of having a sovereign currency. The pound sterling has been issued by the Bank of England since 1694, and it definitely would not have been a good idea for Britain to cede that sovereignty. And what Europe is now suffering, many of the countries, especially the smaller ones, is a problem of sovereignty. And when you cede sovereignty, it means that somebody else, somewhere else, makes decisions for you. Now, if there is a common viewpoint on those decisions, okay, but when the interests part their ways, that's when all the trouble starts, and that's what we are seeing, all the turmoil we are seeing in Europe. The different interests do not tally with the interests of the more powerful nations in the European Union.
You're siding there with Britain's view. Do you think, as we just heard in that report a little earlier, that the exit door is open for Britain? That's what was just said. But do you think Britain will actually walk through it and exit the EU?
I don't think Britain will need to exit the EU. I think Britain, that has 5 centuries of imperial experience, will just stay put and watch the show unfold. I think that what we're going to be seeing quite soon, certainly in the next euro crisis, is that some of the other countries will exit the euro and thereby even start exiting the EU, probably because they can't do otherwise. Greece, maybe Ireland, maybe Spain, maybe Italy, maybe Portugal. I've always said the European Union and the euro have an expiry date. We still don't quite know what that expiry date will be, but it sure seems to be coming very closely, and I think Britain will very shrewdly stand aside and watch the show unfold.
You talk about other countries possibly exiting the EU later on. Obviously, we're seeing many governments, of course, agreeing with what's happening with this latest pact and showing some form of unity. But you just mentioned very interestingly earlier about those countries obviously could lose their sovereignty and being told what to do. Will the electorate of those member states be willing to put up with this sort of bossing from Brussels in the long term, and we'll see them turn against their own governments who want to be members?
Well, they already are turning against their own governments. All the manifestations you are seeing in different parts of Europe are a sure sign that a large portion of the people are dead set against these bullying from Brussels and from these bureaucrats, or Eurocrats, as you might want to call them. So definitely I think that people are realizing that the euro is a little bit like a Procrustean bed, a bed which is one size must fit all. In Greek mythology, Procrustes had made a bed, and he said anybody who was shorter than it, he would stretch him out, breaking bones and sinews until he would fit. And if he were taller than his bed, he would chop off feet and limbs to make sure it would fit. So in a way, I think, going back to Greek mythology, and I think Greece is a very case in point, where they are trying to impose a one-size-fits-all, and we have to understand that in the real world, one size does not fit all.
You talk about Greece, and of course there'll be other countries who presumably be in a similar situation before not too long, whereby with this new pact they're saying that those who break the rules will be fined, and they've got to fit within that. Well, they mustn't exceed their 3% of their GDP. Their budget deficits mustn't exceed that. Obviously, Greece is in a very difficult situation at the moment. But surely we're going to see these countries, or other countries like Greece, continually breaking the rules and simply can't afford to pay those fines.
Well, you see, basically, and this is, I think, the best summary we can do, they are looking at it from a financial and monetary point of view, and they are not looking at it from the point of view of the real economy, which is real people working and producing and making a big effort. So what we are seeing is how finance has completely bullied the real economy. In 2008, we had a private debt crisis worldwide, and the people paid for it. Now we have a public debt crisis, and again, the people pay for it. So finance has grown like a cancerous tumor, so strong that it can impose its terms on the real economy of working people, creative people, and they can make us always pay the tab.
So just very briefly, finally, this pact was aimed at restoring confidence in the euro. It hasn't done that then?
at all. It might just, it's like the living dead. It might keep it alive for a little bit longer, but there definitely are growing crises down the road, and those are the ones that I think Britain is preparing to look on as spectators.
International consultant and author Adrian Salbuchi, thank you very much for your thoughts there live in Buenos Aires.